really... I wanted to rotate it more, but, you know... Like... The small thing you think should be at the top? Like that? Like, you'd say so? Okay. Hold on, I'll make sure it's nice and, This isn't right. Okay, at least I'm not getting penalized for this, so clearly they knew this was gonna be a pain in the... The thing I think of is I had it... No, don't worry about it. I'm thinking... Maybe... Like... That? That's more an angle we're looking at? There's an angle in here to make this look like that. Like, just in court, I'm just here just, like, turning this thing around, being like, how about now? Does it look like a badger now? Maybe I was... Maybe... there? Oh my gosh! Well, is this a miracle or what? I would say so. That's a freaking miracle. No one could possibly deny this jar resemblance to the blue badger. Even though it took us, like, what? 20 years to actually get there? We got there. No, it can't be. You only had 30 attempts at that. Order, order. The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this. Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, I wouldn't call that dramatic. One question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So that badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed, very well then. Please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? Okay, I don't know. we solved the only thing I could say on that is probably the location of the murder weapon. Doesn't matter the murder, it's the location, right? Allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, I might add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of this jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened to the other side of the room, in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason.
Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright?
Do I? I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial, because her sister was the killer. It's too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying?
That would have to have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. Oh no. She bumped him into the trophy, which killed him. Oh no. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? Uh-oh.
A suit of armor, holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword.
Oh, suit of armor. What? Oh, I thought it was a trophy. Whoop. Yes. It says the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife. He would have had to have been Neil Marshall, wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes. There is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room.
Another possibility?
Of course, the perpetrator would have no idea, but nevertheless. I don't know if I can go through with this.
Mr. Wright, what's the matter?
If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Emma's the murderer. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No. There it is. Never imagined her testimony would lead to this.
So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented.
What? What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Skye, but given the circumstances... Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't.
Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence.
If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. It's been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touché, Miss Skye. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility?
What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth?
I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. In one manner or another. That's impossible.
Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased? Does such a message exist?
I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind. Hold on. That's not gonna help. That's not gonna help. That's not gonna help. That's not gonna help. Oh. Nope. 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 Still have no idea what the screwdriver's for, other than a red herring probably at this point. Nope. 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 Maybe this? Is it in the evidence? This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Skye. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek: the truth. No matter how painful it may be.
Now then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased.
It has to be this. It's the only thing with blood on it that's not accounted for. Like, there's the only piece of evidence that's somewhat good, so this one. Oh, okay, we're good so far. This is the message left by the deceased.
This is that blue badger from before, right?
Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here on the surface of this jar.
What do you mean?
If you look closely, you can see the faint trail of blood in this jar. Looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away.
Yes, there's a line here, drawn in the blood.
So what you're saying is these dots were once lines? Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used the few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away. Blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so, all we need to do is connect these points, and the victim's message will become apparent. Oh.
Huh.
Mr. Wright.
What kind of message did the victim leave for us?
I don't know, let me play Connect the Dots. Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal us the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. Only one thing the victim would have written, given the circumstance: his murderer's name. I mean... Are you seeing it? This is literally the worst. Oh, I don't have to draw there. Huh? 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 It's a defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. This is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. Yep.
Of all people. She may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life
was Emma Skye. Nailed it. Seaworthy? Can't say I didn't warn you. God, I hate this guy. Chief Gant. Do you understand the implications of what you've done?
What? What are you talking?
2 years ago, Joe Drake was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in this case, were you not? Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. That's good enough. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know we aren't defenders of justice? What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter. Even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery, ultimately the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. I know, I want to say Drake every single time. My brain flips the R and the A every time. I'm sorry. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. Every time I see Drake. Every time. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sent an innocent man to his death. I'm gonna just stand there like it wasn't his fault.
Order, order!
It's not my fault. Maybe it's my fault. My brain's just functioning that way. Gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. I know out of the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where his trial's headed, no one knows. To be continued. Holy moly. I thought I'd finish this game in like an hour, but it just keeps going. Holy Toledos. I'll try to get his name right going forward. See what I can do. Get it right every time. Sorry, Edgeworth. I didn't mean to get you in trouble. Oh, don't worry about it. This is my problem, not yours.
Hope I'm not interrupting anything, pals. Oh, yes I am. I'll come back later.
Wait, Detective Gumshoe, what is it?
Got a lot of nerve, pal, making a detective run around all well on duty. And top it off, you called me here. I've seen happier people at funerals.
I dig it, Lon is having you run errands again.
Let me tell you, this is the last time, pal. Here. He asked me to give this to you if there was a break in today's trial.
Evidence law? Ezra was talking about this just the other day. You must know there are 2 rules of evidence law. Rule 1, no evidence shall be shown without the approval of the police department. Is that right, Mr. Wright? It seems so. Could at least study some evidence law, really.
The prosecutor also wanted me to give you a message.
A message?
She said if you're planning to take him on, you're going to need this book.
Him. I guess I'll need to give this book a thorough read. Like, right now in our 30-minute recess? No joke or anything. That's just my brain flipping them, you know?
Doesn't look like that book will do you any good now, though. All that's left now is the chief prosecutor's sentence.
That's where you're wrong, Detective.
Huh?
Haven't you figured it out yet? Why I'm still sitting in that prosecutor's seat, despite all these allegations being thrown at me?
Mr. Edgeworth.
The real trial today hasn't begun yet.
What? What else is there left to do? Your credibility's been all but ruined with that forged evidence you were unaware of. Emma Skye found out she unwittingly caused a man's death. Now you're telling me you want to do more? You gotta be kidding me, pal.
You're missing the point, Detective. Lana didn't murder Detective Goodman. She merely stuck a knife into his dead body. That means the real killer is still out there.
What?
And we're going to expose him, no matter what it takes. This case has hurt too many people. It's time to bring it to an end. Yeah, and hopefully not have to rotate jars around to get those in the right position. Because, lordy, that hurt.
Court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. Mr. Edgeworth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Inquiry Committee is planning to impose harsh penalties for your actions.
Thank you for the news, Your Honor.
Yes, well, normally this is where the prosecution calls forth a witness, but, this isn't easy to say. You see, there is some concern that you, Mr. Edgeworth, may have,
struck a bargain. I think I may have manipulated the witnesses.
I didn't say that. It's just, you see, everyone has been talking and...
Very well, Your Honor. I have a solution.
A solution?
That being the case, the prosecution will allow the defense to call forth all further witnesses.
What? There's no precedent for what you're proposing.
Undeniably, this is an unusual arrangement, but a very effective one. It would prove that I haven't struck any deals with the witnesses.
Well, Mr. Wright, what do you say?
Unbelievable. Edgeworth has found a way to continue the trial. Very well. The defense accepts the prosecution's proposal.
Then it's settled. The defense may now call forth the next witness.
Mr. Wright, you do realize this is your last chance. If you call the wrong witness, this trial is as good as over. The defense calls. The time finally has come to bring out the real murderer. I mean, would anyone call anyone but him? I would like to call Goodman to the stand. Please. Yeah. It's Gant, but I do love how they leave some of these as options on here. Damon Gant. The defense calls Damon Gant to the stand.
Damon Gant? What does he have to do with anything?
As a defendant's partner 2 years ago, Mr. Gant has first-hand knowledge of the crime. I feel we should hear what he has to say about it. As luck would have it, he should still be in the courthouse. He would also be the least likely to have been manipulated by me in any way. Wouldn't you agree, Your Honor?
True. All right, bailiff, please escort Mr. Gant to the stand.
Witness, please state your name and occupation. What is this, some kind of practical joke? I was just on my way to lunch. Your name and occupation, sir. Worthy, are you sure you want to do this? Your name and occupation. So you want to play hardball, eh?
Please, Mr. Gant.
Fine. My name is Damon Gant. I'm the acting chief of police. Chief Gant, the court requests to hear your testimony. Oh, righto. What's with a grim face? First, let's clear up this SL9 incident. Oh, you mean the time when Lana's sister murdered that prosecutor? Personally, I think it's been made pretty clear already. There are still some things unaccounted for. Oh, like what? Like the role you played in all of this. Son, either you're very brave or very foolish. You are aware, of course, that a police chief has all kinds of weapons at his disposal. Weapons? Sure. Take my testimony, for example. I don't have to give it if I don't want to. What? Is that true?
I'm afraid so. Chief Police has the right to refuse to testify.
Of course, such an action carries with it certain risks. Don't worry. I'm not here to hinder your trial. Just remember, if this turns out to be a big waste of time, don't say I didn't warn you.
Very well. The witness may now begin his testimony.
I didn't know if that was actually a thing or not, if they could refuse that. As I recall, Neil and I were questioning him that day. To make a long story short, we slipped up. That power outage didn't help either. When I went to my office, I found Lana there. Apparently she had already arranged the crime scene. As you can see, I had nothing to do with the forgery.
Is that when Dark was arrested?
Him? He was lying on the floor unconscious. When Emma sent Neil flying, it seemed Dark bumped his head.
I see. Everything seems pretty clear-cut.
If the police chief has the right to refuse to testify, then I better hit him hard and fast. Here questioning him that day. I don't really have much to work with on that statement. To make a long story short, we slipped out. The power outage didn't help either. Okay, what was your slip up? So the two of you ran immediately after him, right? That's right, but Dark made it to the elevator first. So Neil and I split up. He went upstairs and I went downstairs. I guess you could say he got lucky. What's this about a power outage? Oh, that. The elevator stopped all of a sudden and I got the shock of my life. Well, probably not as shocked as Dio was when that knife went into his heart, though. Ooh. That's not funny. That's not something you want your, Went to my office, I found Lana there. Could you tell us what you saw? It was a shocking sight. Neil and that serial killer were lying in a heap on the floor, all tangled together. Dark was also lying collapsed on the floor. He has apparently hit his head and was knocked out. Next to them were those two poor girls, Lana and Emma. Lana was cradling Emma in her arms. Looking back at it now, she must have already known what her sister had done. Apparently she had already arranged the crime scene. How could you know that? Because of the victim's body. It had already been moved. So that means you found the body near Lana's desk. That's right. I think you said earlier, it was my suit of armor that really stabbed the prosecutor. Yes. Anyway, as you can see, I had nothing to do with the forgery. The forgery. So you're saying that the forgery had already taken place by the time you arrived at your office? That's exactly what I'm saying. I can understand how Lana must have felt. But moving a body and hiding evidence are inexcusable no matter what the circumstances. Is that how it really went down? Staring at the witness won't do you any good, Mr. Wright. If you're going to stare at anything, you better be better off staring at the court record. Were they always the smooth talker? Which piece of evidence ties Gant to the forgery? Lana did admit to forging evidence. But that can't be the whole truth. Somehow I've got to link Gant to the incident. I don't know what I have that links him, but yeah, he is definitely not a nice chief of police. Rosary evidence. Rule 1. No evidence shall be shown without the approval of the police department. 2. Unregistered evidence presented must be relevant to the case on trial. Okay, it doesn't let me see the other side, so... Oh, wait. Yes, you do. Sorry, I'm catching up now. He's lying on that because he had a piece of the jar in his safe. Like, I don't know what this is, but this definitely had the blood on it, so he knew when he was broken and he put a piece in his lock, so objection. He claimed he had nothing to do with the forgery. But I'm afraid that is a claim you cannot back up. Explain yourself. Several pieces of evidence were found in your office. Take this jar, for example. That's a blue badger you showed us earlier. A piece of this jar was discovered in your safe. Not only that, but the evidence list I presented earlier was actually found inside your desk.
It was found where?
You see, Chief Gant, these articles of evidence uncovered in your office are both concrete proof that you also played a part in this illegal investigation.
Chief Gant, what's the meaning of this?
Oh, here's a defense attorney who may even rival Worthy. So you admit to it then, that you were involved in this forgery. Who, me? Or do you mean you? Me? Why would I have anything to do with that? Well, you were the one who snuck into my office when you found this evidence. Prosecutors aren't the only ones capable of forging evidence, you know. Defense attorneys can do so too. Isn't that right, Righto? However, Detective Gumshoe was present during the investigation. Worthy, my boy. Not even detectives are exempt from the law. Rest assured, Dick will receive his due punishment. But, what? Detective Gumshoe's salary drops any further, he'll end up paying to work.
Yes, well, in light of the detective's presence, please give us your testimony regarding these pieces of evidence found in your office, and their relation to the forgery that took place at the crime scene.
My. Kids these days no longer know how to put two and two together. Let's see, what was it now? A jar fragment and a list? For all I know, you could have planted them in my office. Anyway, you can't prove when those pieces of evidence were discovered. If they were found after Dark was convicted, then they're worthless. There's no reason I participated in a forgery. Rearranging the crime scene wouldn't help me out in any way.
Mr. Wright,
Yes, Your Honor.
when investigating the crime scene, you should have been more careful to observe protocol.
You do understand that I am the chief of police, right? There will be consequences.
Oh,
Indeed, I believe I will press charges so you won't make the same mistake again.
my apologies, Chief, but would you mind waiting until tomorrow for that? Today is, well, you know.
All right, Edgy. In return, though.
I know. That place, right?
Huh? What are these guys, telepathic? What do you got? For all I know, you could have planted them in my office. Close with the security go. I know, that's... Anyway, you can't prove when those pieces of evidence were discovered. If they were found after Dark was convicted, then they're worthless. There's no reason I participate in the forgery. Rearranging the crime scene wouldn't help me out in any way. I'll start pressing stuff. I don't think I need to press that. Can't prove when those pieces were discovered. Let's press. What do you mean by that? This is all purely hypothetical, of course. But suppose I did place those items in my safe. Such an act wouldn't necessarily constitute forgery. And concealing evidence found at a crime scene isn't forgery. I'm not through speaking yet, righto? It all depends on when the evidence was discovered. If they were found after Dark was convicted, then they're worthless. Yeah. Good point. Well, I mean, knowing we know, yeah, probably would have pressed that. Really, Chief Gant? At the very least, there is one very large benefit you've reaped from all this. Oh? I wasn't aware. What is this benefit? That would, of course, be the position you have. Chief of Police.
Oh,
The resolution of the SL9 incident secured your promotion to Chief. That in itself is sufficient motive. Oh, ho, ho! Oh, that's a good one. Huh? Do you really think I'm that incompetent? What do you mean? Even without that case, I was already in line to become the next chief. The resolution of SL9 merely sped up the inevitable a little. Is that true, Edgeworth? Yes. He was going to be made chief anyway. Yeah. Be careful when pointing that finger, or you might wind up being the one pointed at. So that means there's only one possible motivation for you to commit forgery. If you didn't do it for yourself, then you did it for someone else. Don't be silly, Worthy. You know me better than that. There are only 3 people I look out for. Me, myself, and I. There, it's out in the open now. Gee, would you mind if I changed my testimony a little?
by all means, please do.
I wouldn't be anyone's accomplice if there was nothing in it for me. I mean... Press? Nothing in it for you. Sorry, but the only person I care about is yours truly. That girl, Lana's little sister, was it? If you think I felt sorry for her, you better think again. You're right. You don't feel sorry for anyone. Be tough on crime and tough on people, that's how I was raised. You seem to be lax enough on yourself, though. Oh, well, that's a good one, Worthy. Could there have been something in it for him? Given his selfishness, would he have helped someone out? He did have an accomplice. And we know who it is. True, he might not be able to help out anyone for their sake, but if it would benefit you, you might decide to assist someone.
Mr. Wright, it appears you're positively determined to portray the chief as a nice man who likes to lend people a hand.
That's not what I mean.
Very well then. Who is this person you believe Chief Gant may have helped forge evidence?
Boop. Because she became chief prosecutor, which meant he controlled prosecutors.
Chief Prosecutor Lana Sky, the defendant.
I believe it's quite obvious in light of the circumstances. Emma Skye fell victim to an unfortunate series of events. Who would want to help her more than her own sister, Lana? And as for Chief Gant, he would also have a reason to help Lana if she asked him to. That reason, of course, is self-profit.
Self-profit? What do you mean?
After the SL9 incident was resolved, Lana Skye was appointed chief prosecutor at the prosecutor's office. The person who arranged this job change was you, Chief Gant.
But how would he profit from all this?
He would be able to use the chief prosecutor as his puppet. Essentially, he would acquire unchecked authority over all investigations.
Do you mean to tell me that despite the chief's formidable appearance, he plays with puppets?
This judge, it's killing me.
Oh, wait. You must mean puppet as in someone forced to do his bidding.
There you go, Chief. Admit it, Chief. You assisted Lana Skye in forging evidence. Your motive to appoint her as chief prosecutor so you could control her. Righto, my boy, you have quite an imagination. Let me ask you something. What? Do you have any proof of this? That I controlled Lana? For example, is Lana testifying that I've done such a thing? Lana, just keep it quiet to protect Emma. There's no way she'd testify. It's Gant.
I'm afraid without any proof, this is all amounts to nothing more than mere conjecture.
Unless that is also what happened in this incident.
This incident? Which one would that be?
Of course, I'm talking about the murder of Detective Bruce Goodman. The chief prosecutor has been acting strange throughout this entire trial. Almost as if someone has been controlling her. Worthy, you better watch your tongue. I wouldn't want you to get hurt. Is that a threat?
Just what do you mean?
What he means, Your Honor, is that Chief Gant is involved in the murder of Detective Goodman. Not only that, but the Chief is now making Lana take the rap to cover up his involvement.
What? Order. I said order. Mr. Wright, you can't be serious.
Huh?
This is an affront to the highest ranking officer in our law enforcement agency. To accuse the chief of police of blackmail and murder. That's impossible.
Your Honor, I was merely reiterating what Mr. Edgeworth said in easier to understand language. It's too late, Mr. Wright. There's no turning back for us now. Looks like he's the one who decided to go through with this.
Can you prove this, Mr. Wright, that the chief, a high-ranking officer of the law, is involved in this murder?
Yes, I can. Good question. Regardless of his rank or title, Chief Gant is just a man. The question is he a criminal? I believe the evidence will tell.
I see. Alright then, let's see what Mr. Wright's got, and it better be good. Show us this evidence that ties Chief Gant to the murder of Detective Goodman.
Get ready for it. Just gotta find it. Oh my gosh, he entered the place of the murder. Present.
This is the ID card list.
Yes, the one that shows who entered the evidence room on the day of the crime. There was one ID on this list we couldn't determine the owner of yesterday. 7777777. Sorry, but there's no way you can prove that's my card number. It's your number.
What? How do you know that?
The safe in Chief Gant's office requires a code to open. A 7-digit code.
7 digits? You don't mean...
I'm afraid so, Your Honor. The code was 7777777. The same as the remaining ID card number on that list. Chief Gant, you entered the evidence room on the day of the crime.
Order. Chief Gant, what do you have to say?
Yeah, it's really not a secure code. Nothing. The defense search my office was in violation of regulations. And I will demand Mr. Wright be punished to the maximum extent of the law. Right now, this court demands an explanation from you about the use of this ID code.
Chief Gant, so you admit it. You entered the evidence room on the day of the crime.
What about it? I'm chief of police. Whether it's the evidence room or the bathroom, what's the difference? Well, one has lots of evidence in it, and the other one you dispose of stuff. I can go anywhere I want. Tell me, when you entered the room, were you alone? I always go to the bathroom alone, as I do with the evidence room. Captain Goodman wouldn't happen to be with you that day, would he? Of course not. Why would he be? I hadn't seen him in days. You hadn't seen him in days, Chief Gant. I'm afraid you've just undone yourself. On that day, you had to have met with Detective Goodman.
What do you mean? This trial's purpose is to determine Lana Sky's guilt.
No, it isn't, Your Honor. This trial's purpose is to determine the truth. If Chief Gant met the victim on the day of the crime, then we need to determine one thing. What transpired during that meeting?
In that case, Mr. Wright, I'm going to have to ask you for evidence. Just proof that the victim went to meet Chief Gant on the day of the crime.
Okay, let's go through everything. I will find something. Although I probably could get idiot. Where's your evidence? Just a second. Pull everything out of my pockets, lay it on the counter, be like, hold on, I'm gonna find it. Just hold on here. I'm looking for the evidence. Ah, there it is. Goodman's lost item report. However, document dated on that date can only be submitted to the chief of police. Take that. Detective Goodman lost his ID card on the day of the crime. Or to be more accurate, Jake Marshall stole it. So Detective Goodman filled out a lost item report. He would have had to give that report to the chief of police. Yet you are in possession of the report, which means you can't be sure that he filled it. He filled it. How do I know, you ask? Because he needed to enter the evidence room that day.
He needed to?
Yes, to transfer the evidence out.
Oh.
Dick Goodman took the form to you, Chief Gant. Then, you accompanied the detective to the evidence room.
I accompanied him?
There's no other way the murderer and Detective Goodman could have entered the room. Hold on, let me guess what you're going to say next. I, the chief of police, murdered poor Goodman. Exactly.
But wait, the chief didn't necessarily need to accompany him to the evidence room. He could have just lent him his ID card.
Yes. Now that you mention it, I believe I might have done something of the sort. Sorry, but that's not possible. According to the record, your card was only used once. Yet you showed us your ID card earlier. If you'd really lent it to the Detective Goodman, it would have been found on his body. Hey, whoa, okay, we looked a little opposite.
Chief Gant, you didn't.
The murder was most likely a spur-of-the-moment crime, for no one in their right mind would choose the police department as a place to commit murder. After the murder, you contacted Lana at the prosecutor's office. Why? Dispose of Detective Goodman's body, of course. You're forgetting, Mr. Wright, that the victim's body was discovered in the prosecutor's office parking lot. How did you manage to move it there? I was at the police department the entire day, you know. And everyone's aware that Lana stayed at the prosecutor's office after the sermon. Everyone except me, it seems. Still, you're the chief of police. You have an entire police force at your disposal. Oh, so you think I just ordered an officer to do it? Hey you, take this here dead body over to the prosecutor's office. I don't think so. We already know what it is. It's a screwdriver. Chief Gant, you left all the evidence we need to prove how you moved the body to the prosecutor's office. And all this time, I thought it was a useless clue just taking up space.
How could the chief have moved the body? Mr. Wright, show us this evidence.
To move the victim's body, Chief Grant used this. Yep. This is how he moved Detective Goodman's body.
What's that? A screwdriver? But what does that have to do with this case?
Mr. Edgeworth, think back to the day of the crime. What is the screwdriver doing here? It's here because... I was asked to go by Chief Gant, no less. He told me he wanted me to keep it here in the prosecutor's office. In any case, on the day of the stabbings, I brought this back here. After the ceremony that day, I didn't plan to return to the prosecutor's office. But you did, because Chief Gant asked you to. You mean I... The body was found in the trunk of Mr. Edgeworth's car. I think it's obvious what happened. The body was moved by that car.
Detective Goodman's body was carried in the trunk of Mr. Edgeworth's car?
Yes, unless of course you have another explanation, Chief. Why else would you have asked Mr. Edgeworth to transport evidence from a closed case? There's only one plausible explanation. To transport the body to your accomplice, Miss Lana Skye.
Order, 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 what's going on here? Is there no room for rebuttal to the defense's outrageous accusations?
Think back to the photograph Miss Starr took at the prosecutor's office. It's not a photo of the body being stuffed in the trunk to be taken away. It was exactly the opposite. Is a photo of the body being taken from the trunk.
Chief Gant, please say something.
I believe... Your time's up.
My time's up.
Sorry, righto, but I'm having lunch with the District Attorney General after this. We have to get going if we're going to make it in time for the early bird special. But cross-examination is finished. Remember what I told you earlier. A police chief has all kinds of weapons at his disposal. Weapons. Like the right to refuse to testify. I'm invoking that right now.
What? That is not right to be casually invoked. There are certain risks to be considered.
So you're going to just run away after all this? Run away? Don't make me laugh, Worthy. I stabbed old Goodman. That's what you're saying, right? But if you had any conclusive evidence, you would have presented it by now. Well, You think I had Lana dispose of the body? If so, then show your proof and get it over with.
I'll say it again, Mr. Wright. Damon Gant is the current chief of police. This court will not tolerate any accusations against him without concrete proof. Well, Mr. Wright?
Your Honor.
Do you have any concrete proof? Proof that Chief Gant murdered Detective Goodman and made Miss Skye dispose of his body?
Do I have any concrete proof? I don't think I have any proof of that. Scrolling through my evidence, scrolling through my evidence. Scrolling through my evidence. Yeah, no, I got nothing. Yet. It's only showing evidence I'm not even sure of myself. No, Your Honor, at present, I have no conclusive evidence. Humph. See,
In that case, this court is forced to penalize you for your allegations against the chief.
What? Here's a tip. Never gamble what you can't afford to lose. Righto. It seems that Lady Luck was on my side again today. Okay, Edgy. I'll leave the rest to you. Oops.
I warned you earlier, Mr. Wright. This is an affront to a senior officer in our nation's law enforcement agency.
What? Lady Luck, Maybe we should have a word with her.
Mr. Edgeworth, what do you mean?
there's one lady who knows the real truth behind this trial. We haven't yet had the honor of hearing her testimony. A lady who knows the truth. Another witness. In the absence of conclusive evidence, the only other method of proof is testimony. Chief Gant has invoked his right to refuse to testify. There's still someone else. One more witness who can answer all the questions. Raised in this trial, someone right in this very room.
Mr. Edgeworth, who is this person?
Why are you asking me, Your Honor? Have you forgotten? The defense is the one calling witnesses today.
Mr. Wright, does such a witness exist?
She may not be willing to tell the truth, but we can't just stop now. Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls forth Jake Marshall. Lana Sky.
The defendant? Miss Lana Sky?
She was in the underground parking lot at 5:15 p.m. on February 21st. Her task to dispose of the victim's body, in accordance with a certain someone's orders.
Mr. Edgeworth.
The prosecution has no objections, Your Honor.
Very well, the court will now take its final recess for the day. In 50 minutes, we will reconvene to hear the defendant's testimony. This court is now in
Hold on.
Huh? Chief Gant, I thought you were going to eat.
Listen good, Lana. He's talking to Lana. I don't think you need me to tell you this, but if you accept Mr. Wright's claims, there will be terrible consequences. That's right. Your sister will be found guilty for Neil Marshall's murder. This isn't good. Of course, you'd never support such outrageous claims anyways, right? Just something to think about. All right, then. I've got a lunch date to meet.
Okay, if there aren't any further objections, this court is now in recess.
I feel like as soon as something like that would happen, that would just really throw a chink in the stand. But, yeah. That seems a little fishy. Looks like we managed to stay in the game. Yeah, thanks to your help, Edgeworth.
That chief, he's something else, hey, pals?
Detective Gumshoe.
Ha ha ha.
I'm not a detective anymore. Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Ah, don't worry. I've already decided where to work now. At your office.
My office?
Sure. I'll take the place of that top-knotted girl you used to work with.
What do you mean? Maya?
Still, looks like we're all out of moves now. Chief Gant's done it again. How is it he always gets the upper hand?
It's not fair. He has the right to refuse to testify. Settle down, Wright. Remember what the judge said.
But Chief, this is not a right to be casually invoked. There are certain risks to be considered.
Risks? What did he mean by that? It's simple. If the chief refuses to testify, the opposite also holds true. You mean he forfeits his right to say anything too? Emma, are you okay? Yeah, when I came to, I was in the medical office. I've been listening to the trial from the gallery. So she heard everything that's been going on. Emma, I'm sorry for what I said before. No, don't be. It was the truth. You know, it's funny. I almost feel somehow relieved. Relieved? Yeah. Now I finally know what really happened. I think that all this time, my sister was being blackmailed by that terrible man. And she did it all just to protect me. Ever since her appointment as chief prosecutor, everyone who knew her said she changed. Perhaps it was easier that way for her.
What do you mean?
What do you think I mean, to follow Chief Grant's orders? She must have shut herself up deep inside, to force herself to do anything and everything the chief told her to do. That must be why she became so cold. It was all my fault. It's all because I murdered Mr. Marshall.
Hey, don't go blaming yourself now. If you want to blame anyone, blame society, pal.
Yeah, take that, society. Chief Gant may be able to fool everyone else with his forgery, but he can't fool my memory. I remember now. I knocked Mr. Marshall into that armor. I see.
Well, we better get back. It's time for the final act.
Emma, why don't you wait here? No, I'm going with you. I want to be there when Lana tells the truth. Let's go, Wright. It's time to end this. Well, here we go. Final day, trial letter 2. Here we go.
End this. Now then, will the defendant, Miss Lana Skye, please take the stand?
Good luck. Miss Lana Skye, you are the chief prosecutor. I'm sure you're aware of what is required of you. But Mr. Edgeworth, you already know everything. You know all that I've done these past 2 years.
Please provide the court with your testimony, Miss Skye. And remember, you are under oath. We want to hear the truth.
Of course. The truth. Lana, no matter what happens, I'll always be your sister.
Now then, your testimony, if you will. First, tell us about your relationship with Chief Gant.
Everything hinges on your testimony. You're the only chance we have to get Gant. All right, here we go. I worked alongside Gant for years. There's no truth to the blackmail theory. I fabricated the evidence 2 years ago all by myself. When I found Prosecutor Marshall's body, I rearranged the crime scene. My only motive was to get Dark convicted. I had nothing to do with him.
Are you sure about this testimony?
Your Honor, I'm confessing to a capital offense. Of course I'm sure. But Lana...
If this is true, then that means Chief Gant has nothing to do with this.
That's what I've been telling you from the beginning. Please, Mr. Wright, you've got to help her. She's sacrificing herself because of me. What if she's telling the truth? She's not. I know my own sister. Whenever she speaks stiffly like that, she's hiding something inside. Deep down, she's really screaming in agony.
Yeah, this is no time to start second-guessing myself. The defense may now begin its cross-examination.
Okay. What do we got? Worked alongside Gant for years. I'm not really needing to press that. There's nothing there. There's no truth to this blackmail theory. Fabricated the evidence 2 years ago all by myself. When I found Prosecutor Marshall's body, I rearranged the crime scene myself. You rearranged the crime scene. Press that. Did you do so to help your sister? Joe Dark was a serial killer. My sister almost became his last victim that day. I didn't want that incident to ruin her life. What she did was justifiable self-defense. She wouldn't have been charged with anything. That's not the point. She was traumatized that day, all because of that creep. That's why I couldn't forgive him. Lana.
So that's why you fabricated the evidence 2 years ago.
Found the prosecutor Marshall rearranged the crime scene. Did you? You say you did this all by yourself. Yes. Would you mind telling us what you found when you arrived at the crime scene? Seems I was the first person to discover the scene. The broken prosecutor's ward knife was stuck in the victim's body. What? Prosecutor Marshall died from an unfortunate accident. That's only a situation you dreamed was possible. Reality is, it wasn't my sister who took the prosecutor's life. Fantasy all you want, Mr. Wright, but I'll never change the statement. You mean Prosecutor Marshall wound up being killed by Dark? Something like that. If that is so, what happened to the other murder weapon? Dark was carrying a switchblade knife. Oh, that was lying on the floor a little distance away. It was probably knocked away in the struggle. That's not how it went down. She's trying to cover up her lies with more lies. All just to protect me.
So when you found the scene like this, what did you do? After all, this is what everything boils down to.
Yes. I broke off the tip, Jerk's knife, planted inside the wound, and then moved the body. Okay. I guess I'll press that. You planted the tip of Dark's knife into his body.
And then you moved the body.
But why? Why would you do that? You of all people should know, Edgeworth. You've always had a good head on your shoulders. My hit isn't that bad, but maybe I ought to ask for the sake of the others. Why did you plant the knife? We know why he planted the knife, because he was stabbed in the wrong thing. But why did you move the body? When you showed up on the scene, where exactly was the victim's body? It was where you deduced it was, by Chief Gant's desk. But the body was found by your desk. Why did you move it there? The reason for that is simple.
Let's have the witness explain this in more detail. The reason this guy moved the body.
A piece of the jar that shattered during the events threatened my plan. I mean, do I press that, or do I put the proof that it didn't happen during the events, it broke after it? Press it or present? I'm gonna present it, because it was broken after it was written on, so it didn't happen during the events, it happened after the events. Miss Sky, I understand how you feel. You committed that crime 2 years ago to protect your sister.
You mean the forgery at the scene where Neil Marshall was murdered?
If that truth were to be exposed now, the past 2 years of your life will have been in vain. Even so, I am compelled to bring to everyone's attention a significant contradiction with your testimony. Contradiction in my testimony? You testified, and I quote, "The pieces of the jar that shattered during the events threatened my plan." That's right.
Do you have a problem with that?
It's simple oversight, really. You see, a message was written on this jar with the victim's blood. Yes, the prosecutor must have written it in his final moments. Exactly so. This is where the contradiction lies. In order for the victim to be able to write his message on the jar, it must not yet have been broken before he died. Ah. He couldn't have written Emma's name on a shattered jar. He could have.
Order! Order!
Your Honor, it would appear more information is needed in regard to this jar and its bloody message. We may be missing something critical here. Something critical. Chief Prosecutor, it seems you're as in the dark as we are, but the truth towards which we're headed. What? Just tell us exactly what you saw. We'll piece together the information to arrive at the truth.
Very well. The witness may now continue her testimony.
Jar and message in blood. I immediately noticed the blood traces on the jar, but it was dark in the room and I didn't have time to check it out. To be safe, I wiped away the blood. The fragments were large, so I'm sure I got them all. All I could think about was wiping them clean before they were discovered.
You mean you were the one who wiped away the message in blood?
I wasn't chief prosecutor at the time. She didn't think Dark was the real murderer. That's why she tried to erase the real evidence.
Very well. The defense may now begin its cross-examination.